Welcome to Daily Ease, a little corner of calm where we invite you to find peace in your everyday life. Because we believe that stillness is also a form of growth. Let's slow down and talk gently about living with a softer, kinder rhythm. It wasn't really about that. I used to think we argued because of small things. Who forgot to do the dishes? Who left the bathroom light on again? Who replied with silence instead of words? But over time, I realized it was never really about those things. It was about how we spoke to each other. The tone, the sharpness that slipped in without warning, the little sigh that said more than words ever could. The way my voice would rise just slightly, just enough to build a wall between us. I remember one night you asked me something simple. Did you remember to call them back? And instead of just saying yes or no, I snapped. Something about how I had a million things to do, how I couldn't remember everything, how maybe you could handle it next time. You went quiet. Not the kind of quiet that means peace, the kind that means retreat. And in that silence, I felt the distance grow. Not in miles, but in the small, invisible space between our hearts. Somewhere along the way, I stopped hearing what you meant and started defending what I felt. I stopped listening to understand and started listening to respond. Until one evening, I caught the sound of my own voice, and I didn't like it. It was the voice of someone who had forgotten that the person across from them was not an opponent, but a partner. The moment I noticed. It wasn't during a big fight. There were no slammed doors, no raised voices echoing through the apartment. It was on a quiet Tuesday evening. You were sitting on the couch, scrolling through something on your phone, and I walked in from the kitchen holding a cup of tea that was already going cold in my hands. I asked a simple question, something about dinner plans, I think. But my tone wasn't simple at all. It was clipped, impatient, like I had already decided you were going to give me the wrong answer. You looked up at me, not with anger, not with frustration, but with something worse. You smiled. The kind of tired smile that says, I don't want to fight again. The kind that carries the weight of 100 small moments just like this one. And my heart sank. Because I suddenly understood, even when we're not fighting, we can still hurt each other with the way we speak. Even when the words themselves are harmless, the delivery can bruise. I stood there in the doorway, tea in hand, feeling the full weight of all the sharpness I'd been carrying around without even realizing it. That night, after you'd gone to bed, I sat alone in the dark living room and replayed every conversation from the past month. How many times had I used that tone? How many times had you smiled that tired smile? How many times had I chosen to be right instead of choosing to be kind? I didn't sleep much that night, but I made myself a promise that the next words I said to you would be softer. Not because I was weak, but because I was finally strong enough to choose gentleness over pride. Learning the small languages of love. I started noticing the small things, how your shoulders drop a little when I say thank you. Actually mean it, not just throw it away like loose change. How your eyes light up when I say take your time, when I give you space instead of pressure. How the air in the room shifts when I ask, how are you feeling, instead of what's wrong with you? And how peace returns not when I win an argument, but when I pause before starting one. I learned that kindness isn't silence. It's not about biting your tongue until it bleeds. It's about gentleness with sound. It's about the way we let each other breathe before replying. I started practicing small acts of linguistic tenderness, replacing "you always" with "I noticed," replacing "you never" with "I miss when we," replacing "whatever" with "can we talk about this?" I learned to say your name the way I did when we first met, with attention, with care, like it was a word worth savoring. And sometimes I learned that love sounds like this. I understand. I'll listen. Let's start again. I'm sorry I said it that way. You're right, and thank you for being patient with me. These small phrases became our new language, a language of repair, of rebuilding, of choosing each other, even when it would be easier to choose our pride. The slow practice. We're still learning. There are days I fail, when my voice is still too sharp, when my patience runs thin like worn fabric, when I forget that you're not the enemy, you're the person I chose to love. There are mornings when I wake up on the wrong side of myself, and I can feel the old patterns creeping back in, the defensiveness, the need to be right, the shortcuts our tongues take when we're tired. But now, when that happens, we don't walk away. We reach out. Sometimes you'll touch my hand and say, "Can we try that again?" And I'll take a breath, reset my heart, and start over. I'm sorry. What I meant to say was, it's strange, isn't it? The more we learn to speak kindly, the less we need to speak at all. Our silence now feels safe, not distant, not cold, just quiet, in a way that feels like peace. The kind of quiet where we can sit together, reading different books, drinking different teas, existing in the same space without needing to fill it with words. Because we've learned that silence too has a tone, and ours is finally gentle. Some days the practice feels natural. I'll hear myself speaking to you and think, "Oh, we're getting better at this." Other days it's harder. The old habits knock on the door, wanting to be let back in. But we're learning to recognize them now, to name them. That was my stress talking, not me. I'm feeling defensive right now, but I don't want to be. Can I have a moment before I respond? And you've learned your own version of this too. You've learned to say, "I need some space right now, but I'm not leaving. I'm hurt, but I still love you. Can we come back to this when we're both calmer?" Together, we're building something new. Not a relationship without conflict, but a relationship where conflict doesn't have to mean cruelty. A promise for tomorrow. One day, I hope we'll look back and laugh at how stubborn we both were. How many small words turned into storms. How we turned molehills into mountains just because we forgot to be gentle with each other. I hope we'll remember the Tuesday evening when everything changed, when I saw your tired smile and decided to do better. But I also hope we'll remember how we learned to speak softly again. Not perfectly, there's no such thing. Just kindly. Just with intention. Just with the understanding that the person we're speaking to is the person we're building a life with. Not a debate opponent, not a problem to solve, but a human being with their own tender spots and tired days. Because maybe that's what love really is. Not finding the right words every single time, but choosing gentle ones, again and again, even when it's hard, even when we're tired, even when we're right and they're wrong. Choosing to speak to each other the way we'd want to be spoken to on our worst days. And every time we do, every time we pause before we speak, every time we soften our tone, every time we say, "I'm sorry," and mean it, every time we choose understanding over being understood, it feels like saying, "I still choose you." Not the perfect version of you, not the imaginary version that never makes mistakes, but the real you, the one sitting across from me, trying just as hard as I am, learning this slow dance of kindness, one conversation at a time. And maybe years from now, when people ask us what our secret is, we won't talk about grand gestures or perfect compatibility. We'll say, we learned to speak kindly. And then we practiced. Every single day we practiced. Not because it was easy, but because we decided that our love was worth the effort of gentleness.